Is very serious, and it's clear that the deadlock in the country has made people very restless. We will closely monitor the situation and take care of those Germans who are still in Tunisia.
While the evening curfew returns some calm to the streets of Tunis, a state of emergency remains in place. President Obama has praised the Tunisian people's courage, but other international observers fear there could be more unrest to come.
I have been very closely following the situation in Tunisia with concern. Now, I'm saddened by the loss of life and call again for restraint in the use of force and full respect for freedom of expression and association.
A day after Tunisian People Power drove an authoritarian president from office, other regional leaders may be looking anxiously over their shoulders too. Look familiar? These protests against rising food and fuel prices were in the Jordanian capital Amman on Friday, and the factors that came together to unseat President Ben Ali are present elsewhere in North Africa too.
The official political processes in all these countries has got a very bad reputation. Parliaments are mostly there not to filter the views of the population, but to reflect those of the regime in place and act on their behalf.
Momentous though Friday's events were for Tunisia, there is no guarantee that the unrest will be contagious. But they are likely to make other authoritarian regimes in the region even more intolerant of dissent. Soon their resolve to hang on to power could be put to a stern test. Jack Izzard, BBC News.
Well, Intissar Kherigi is a Tunisian activist and a specialist in human rights in Tunisia. She left the country when she was 5 because her father was an opposition campaigner. She joins us now in the studio. Intissar, thanks for coming in. Did you ever think you'd see such events in Tunisia?
Well, to be honest, no. This is really extraordinary events. I mean, this is unprecedented across the region, really. But anyone who knows Tunisia closely knows that this is a country which has been ruled with an iron fist for 60 years. So this is something that's been building for a long time. And it's a country which has one of the world's worst human rights records. It actually ranks behind China, Russia and Zimbabwe in terms of political participation and media freedom. So people who know the situation actually know that this corruption, economic problems that have occurred are really the last straw that broke the camel's back, really.
And what do you think happens next in terms of a possible interim government, a possible democratic government, elections? How do you take this forward?
Well, I think the people who have announced the interim government have absolutely no credibility in the country, because people's demand was not only that Ben Ali would leave, but that the entire corrupt ruling party, which has had its strong fist on Tunisia for 60 years, leave, because they are completely discredited. They're the ones who've ruled through an extensive system of patronage and corruption and bribery, and really brought this country to what it is today. I mean, Tunisia is a country that's generally quite peaceful, had a large middle class, one of the most educated populations in the Arab world. But what's happened is, as noted by the US ambassador himself, who is shocked by the corruption, as seen on WikiLeaks, that the president's family has greedily taken over the entire economy to the style of a mafia style, really. The president's son-in-law, for example, owns shipping line cruises. He owns concessions for Porsche, Audi, and people simply had enough.
But now that Ben Ali has been effectively, well, he's left, is there not a chance that what we had, the political elite that was there previously, that they'll just be able to reform and kind of keep the status quo, but just without Ben Ali?
Well, this is clearly what they're trying to do, but as human rights lawyers have pointed out to us in Tunisia, this is out of line with the constitution. I'm afraid Mr. Ghannouchi does not have the right to do this under the Constitution. What he must do is hand over power to an interim government, which has the right to remain in power for the maximum of 60 days. And in fact, there are many opposition parties out there, some of whom are in exile, who have fought for democracy in Tunisia for a long time, and who are willing to come forward and form a unity government together. So there is leadership there. And I don't think people will accept the situation.
And you've been speaking to people back in Tunisia. You say they're not willing to accept this kind of situation. Are they angry? How do they feel?
I think they feel that they've already sacrificed greatly. I mean, not only these possibly around 100 deaths that have happened in the last month, but also decades of corruption, of repression that they've put up with. I mean, this is a country where YouTube is banned, Facebook is severely restricted, and people are simply not enjoying the fruits of the economic growth that the US and Europe have been touting in Tunisia has not been able to reach people across the country. So I think people have felt that the wall of silence has been broken, and I don't think they're willing to resurrect that wall.
OK, Intissar Kherigi, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Well, let's actually speak to somebody in Tunisia now. David Wilson is the headmaster of a recently established school in Tunis. We can speak to him on the phone now. Thanks for talking to us. Just describe what is happening right now, because we know that there's a curfew. What's happening on the streets around you?
Well, very difficult for me to say, because I'm now in a very nice hotel, but really taking refuge, being surrounded by the army who have taken control. So I have very little idea of what is precisely happening on the streets. But if my experience this morning is anything to go by, everything had degenerated into really mob rule. And just really criminal acts of ransacking, looting, and setting fire to buildings, not just of people who were associated with the family, the presidential family, but almost anybody who represented wealth beyond, what is everybody's sort of average means. And so this has been a melting pot, which is now just boiled over. And we, us Brits here holed up in this hotel, are really not quite sure when we're going to be able to get out.
But these eruptions of violence, this looting, are these just pockets, or is this across the board, do you feel? I
believe it's across the board now, because I've heard a number of reports that it's happening in Hammamet, in Sfax, in different parts. And I think it's just an outpouring of huge frustration, which your previous speaker said so well and summed up the whole situation so well. This has been boiling for a long, long time. Yeah, as she said, not even just the last 20 years, but almost 60 years of repression. And, it can't go on forever. Yet it's a very sad situation, because the country is a wonderful country with absolutely lovely people in them. And it is ready for development and emergence as a European partner. But it was never going to happen with Ben Ali in the way that he was trying to keep such control of power.
Well, now that Ben Ali has effectively, he's out of the picture, so to speak, what do you think happens next? Do you think the people are ready to form a government? We've, of course, still got Ghannouch there. What happens next, in your opinion? Yeah,
I think this is a very, very dangerous period for all Tunisians. I speak to one or two here, and they are very worried, because it's the army, effectively, that's in charge. But some sort of proper democratic process has got to be established. And it's got to be done constitutionally. Now, if that's not transparent, then I'm afraid I think the mob will go back onto the streets. But we're not going to see an end to this in the next few days. I think it's going to take several weeks and months before things calm down, and some semblance of democratic normality can be established.
OK, David Wilson, a headmaster in a school in Tunis. Well, let's get a bigger picture on all of this, because Abdel Bari Atwan, he joins us now. You're, of course, the editor of the London-based Arab newspaper Quds Al Arabi. Just give us the bigger picture on this. Countries in the region looking at what's happening in Tunisia, are they worried? They must be looking very, very closely at what's happening.
Yes, it depends on whether you are talking about the people in the Middle East. They are extremely happy. They are celebrating for the first time that people in the streets, they managed to change the regime with the minimum of the bloodshed. So if you are actually on the leaders, dictators position, you will be extremely worried, because they are scared that the same experience could be spread on several Arab capitals where the frustration is huge and its peak. For example, if you look at Egypt, the situation is appalling there. Ailing president and also corruption in its peak. If you look at the Syrian situation, the same thing, repressive government, and also the people unemployed, unemployment at least more than 20%. Among the young people, it's about 40%. So people are so frustrated. So they may look at the Tunisian experience as a guideline for the future. So people are very happy. Something happened. They managed to change the regime, dictatorship, ruthless dictatorship. Rulers are very worried because, you know, they are maybe worse than Ben Ali of Tunisia.
And say now, looking at Tunisia specifically, do you think the people will be in a position to set up their own government?
Yes, I believe, you know, it was spontaneous revolutions or uprising. The middle class was part of this uprising. Young people actually were ready to sacrifice themselves for this uprising. So I don't believe they will go back to the old regime. They wouldn't accept, you know, some sort of, you know, transformation of the regime or reproducing the regime again in different shape. So now they want to get rid of Ben Ali, get rid of the old regime, and root out all the supporters, all the officials who were actually part of this regime. For example, Ghannouchi, who is the prime minister, who is taking over from Ben Ali, he was the architect of economic policies actually which led to this uprising. So how can he be in charge of the country which he ruined by his policies? So the people are aware of that. They are very intelligent, highly educated, and the alternative media actually made them more aware of the situation. So I believe there is no way of return to the previous position, and the wheel of change started in Tunisia and actually could reach the neighbor of Tunisia, Libya, Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, Syria, Sudan. God knows where it will stop.
OK, Abdel Bari Atwan, thank you so much. We have to leave it there. And of course, don't forget there's a full background and analysis on the BBC News website, so do check it out. Now let's get some other news. BP has signed a joint